that govern business in Uganda. Our quick apologies for that quick, short interruption that we had, but right now we're back on track. Like I said before we took that break, we're going to talk pretty much about the Ugandan economy and how it stands at present. It's very important for you to understand the dynamics that govern the economy, because without understanding what governs the economy at the end of the day, you won't be able to make the necessary decisions that you need, and you won't be able to understand why the leaders of this country make the decisions that they do, and why, for example, particular issues happen, particular matters happen surrounding the economy if you do not have the necessary information at your fingertips. But most importantly, this is a market analysis segment where we analyze a particular story that is trending throughout the day. And today, of course, before I finalize with the Ugandan economy, we'll be talking about the EU's contribution to agribusiness in Uganda, and that is a big story this morning. But without further ado, the economy of Uganda has significant natural resources, including ample fertile land, regular rainfall, and mineral deposits. It is thought that Uganda could feed all of Africa and is known many a times as the food basket of Africa. And that is because it can certainly come about if we do more commercial farming. The Ugandan economy at present has great potential, and as we end and wrap up the year 2018, we think that in the following year, without a shadow of a doubt, we'll see an increase in the growth of the economy. Currently, our gross domestic product, as per the World Bank, as per the year 2017-2018, stood at 25.89 billion US dollars, and the GDP of a country varies from time to time. You will know that there are people around the world who do have this kind of money, 25 billion, to their name as a personal fortune. So that person pretty much has the equivalent amount of money for the gross domestic product of a whole country, that is Uganda. So that's interesting to look at. And I know our analysts who will be coming into the studios will be here to analyze all that and so much more. According to the World Bank, our GDP per capita is 604 US dollars. That is the GDP per capita. And of course, according to the World Bank, our gross national income is 78.01 billion. That is PPP dollars. And our GNI per capita is 1,820 PPP dollars. And our GDP growth currently, as per 2017-2018, was without a doubt 4.0%. And our internet usage, and that is very important, because right now, whenever we analyze issues in Africa, we have to put into consideration that we're now one of the youngest continents in the world. Majority of the people, I think 70% of the people who live in Africa as a whole, are under the age of 35 years of age. So that's pretty young. And in Uganda, the statistic gets even lower. Majority of the people in Uganda are under the age of 25 years of age. That's around about 70%. We are one of the youngest countries in the world. And with that in mind, the governments of these countries must start making serious plans for the youth and the future of the country. So we always also look at the fact of digitalization, because before we used to be in analog and life was very different. But now in the next 5 to 10 years or so, digitalization will be pretty much available to everybody. So we also look at the internet usage. This is very, very important when looking at the economy of a country. How many people have access to the internet? How many people have access to a digital way of life? Because pretty much that is the future. And our internet usage, as per 2011 all the way till now, is still quite low, 13.0% of the population. Right now it's around about 18.0% of the population. So that's where you have it. And of course, our GDP sector, we really focus a great deal on agriculture. There's a big emphasis on agriculture for our GDP per sector. Our agriculture at 71.9%, our industry at 4.4%, and our services at 23.9%. 3.7%. So there you have it. Our main and core GDP per sector and main focus in Uganda happens to be agriculture. And of course, that brings us to our main point of analysis here in the market analysis this morning on smart business. It's very important for us to take a look at the stories that we think are very, very important. Well, the European Union has agreed to support Ugandan agribusiness in coffee and cocoa sector under the EU EAC Market Access Upgrade Program. Now, the EU EAC, that's the European Union and East African Community Market Access Upgrade Program, is called the markup. And the European Union has, of course, come in to support agribusiness under this arrangement. And it's funded by the European Development Fund for a total amount of 150 billion Uganda shillings, which is equivalent to 35 million euros. Now, markup aims to assist small and medium sized enterprises across the region to improve access to the EU market and increase inter-regional trade. Now, this money is going to go to SMEs, as I discussed, and medium-sized enterprises across the country. It's 35 million euros, and if used well, it will certainly make a huge contribution. Now, they want to have our produce, our agricultural produce, have the capacity to access the Western market, which is much welcomed, and of course interregional trade. And this money will go into making sure that we have or produce a superior agricultural product. The amount earmarked for Uganda under this program is 15.6 billion Uganda shillings. That's 15.6 billion Uganda shillings, and equivalent to euros of 3.7 million. Well, markup is meant to address supply side constraints and help increase exports, especially to the EU. So now, sometimes we have farmers who deal in delicate produce, be they, for example, flowers, be it fish, be it tomatoes, be it coffee. Because in this aspect, markup is focusing mainly on coffee and cocoa, and these are very delicate products, and it's important for them to be transported in an organized manner and in a timely manner, and pretty much well packed, so that they can have access to the EU market. Of course, the EU market has some stringent guidelines. If you have produce, for example, you have coffee, and it's not up to standard, it's not well produced, it's not good aromatic coffee, then the ability of it to get into another market is going to be very difficult. And the markup, this is a market access upgrade program supported by the EU and the EAC, will make sure that the money, that is 15.6 million Uganda shillings, goes towards this cause. So various farmers, agriculturalists, and those in the agribusiness community will be identified through this program to ensure that that becomes a reality. Interventions will target selected value chains and cover quality assurance and certification, value addition, trade facilitation, and business promotion. So they're looking at really the key components that make export of coffee and cocoa a success to the EU market. They're looking at value chains. They're targeting selected value chains. They're looking at quality assurance. What is the quality of the product? Are they sure of the quality 100% that it is good Ugandan coffee? And then there's a certification as well. There are particular guidelines and certifications that are really important when entering the EU market, and guidelines that have to be adhered to in order for that produce to end up on a shelf in Europe. So they're looking at certification as well, and the value addition, and the trade facilitation, and of course the business promotion. There's nothing that a product can do without the necessary business promotion. Perhaps you have great cocoa, you have great coffee. Without the necessary promotion, you will never know that Uganda even has good cocoa. We know for a fact in Africa, it is Côte d'Ivoire or Ivory Coast that is the #1 producer of cocoa. And why cocoa is very important is it goes into hot chocolate that's drank all around the world. It also goes into chocolate, and it's much needed. It's a much needed raw material, especially in the West, be it in Switzerland, where lots of chocolates are being made. Well, in Uganda, the focus is on coffee and cocoa value chains in line with the current national export development strategy. So the markup strategy, usually the markup, which is a market access upgrade program through the European Union and through, of course, the East African community, usually at times deals with agribusiness. But in the instance of Uganda, in this particular aspect, it's going to deal directly and solely with only coffee and cocoa, because they have identified that that's where our strengths lie. Coffee, Uganda has had great coffee, and already some coffee is in chains in the US and in supermarket chains in Europe as well. And that's the same as cocoa. So we also want to be a huge cocoa exporter. In 10 years, they have more than doubled cocoa exports from Uganda to EU countries, which has peaked to 153 billion in 2015. That is euros 36 million. And the cocoa sector presents strong potential for further development. Like I said before, the cocoa market is a virgin market, especially in the region of East Africa. We know that Côte d'Ivoire and other countries in West Africa have been leading greatly in the cocoa industry. But in the last few years or so, 2015, cocoa as a product, as a produce in agriculture here in Uganda has also become pretty much of a priority. Coffee and cocoa are predominantly grown as smallholder cash crops, providing income for thousands of households in Uganda. It is grown on a small scale, but various people do in upcountry do grow coffee, do grow especially cocoa in these areas. And because of the export capacity of this produce, there has been increased demand in the speciality of coffees from the region, and overall long-term global coffee demand is expected to outstrip global supply. So Ugandan coffee is doing well. It's a primordial export for this country, and we want cocoa as well to follow suit. In the market analysis here on Smart Business, we always discuss the key points. Yesterday we discussed the key points making up the tourism sector, and today of course we're discussing the key points making up the markup as per the EU and EAC contribution of over 15 billion Uganda shillings towards this cause. Currently, any Ugandan product except for arms and ammunition can access the EU market duty-free, quota-free under the EU's everything but arms preferential regime offered to all least developed countries. So there is some hope for the European Union market for those in Uganda who might be wondering, because our goods are allowed to enter the European Union space, and the conditions of course are you do enter the produce duty-free, quota-free under the EU's everything but arms preferential treatment to their partners, which is a good thing. So already our products have been able through this everything but arms process, they have been able to enter the EU market. But what this, of course, the latest package by Market Access Upgrade Program is trying to do is to ensure that yes, you have that ability, but we also want to give the Ugandan agribusiness sector an opportunity indeed to reach deep into our consumers. So that is the EU providing support to the coffee and cocoa sector this morning. That's been our market analysis this morning. I'm Jane Kasumba. We're going to be right back with Smart Business. Thank you for watching.